RollerCoaster Tycoon 3 often gets knocked for being an inferior game compared to the classic 2D games, but even RCT3's harshest critic has to admit one thing: its flat ride collection is pretty remarkable. RCT3's developer, Frontier, added over 45 flat ride models, ranging from recognizable classics to ultra-obscure one-offs that weren't present in RCT2. In this video, we'll be looking at every single one of these flat rides, trying to figure out what real-world rides inspired their designs. For anyone who hasn't seen my RCT Classic Flat Rides video and doesn't know what a flat ride is, it's essentially any ride that isn't a roller coaster, tracked ride, dark ride, or water ride. I also won't be addressing rides already covered in that video, so be sure to watch it if you haven't already. Finally, I'll be limiting the scope in this video to just the rides found under the generic or blue top hat theme, as nearly all of the themed rides are either reskins of generic rides or not based off of any real-world ride model at all. I'll also be ignoring some of the really generic attractions like the Mirror Maze or Space Arcade to give myself more time to talk about the interesting ones. That said, let's get into it. The Floundering Ferry is based on the real-world rides built by the Italian manufacturer Zamperla, what they call their Rock and Tug model. It looks like they began making these in 2003, with the first permanent installation going to Wicksteed Park in Kettering. This family-friendly ride has proved very popular over time with both small family-owned parks and large corporate parks. And while most are themed to tugboats, there are a few more interesting variants, such as the Avril Lavigne-approved Skateboarda at Adventure Island in the UK. We talked a bit about this ride model when looking at the Snow Cups in RCT2, but we didn't specifically address anything teacup related, so here we are. Nearly every Disneyland-style park has an Alice in Wonderland-themed teacups ride, but only one incorporates the glass pavilion scene in RCT3, Disneyland Paris. So yes, the bucking bull does appear under the Western theme, but I did want to quickly mention it, as it was obviously inspired by real-life mechanical bulls, also known as bucking machines. You won't find these in amusement parks, but you will find them at fairgrounds, parties, and, for alcohol-fueled variants, bars and restaurants. The chair swing is based off of one of the most popular flat rides in amusement history, the Wave Swinger. The German manufacturing firm Sierra has been making these since the early 1970s, and as of this writing has installed over 150 models at parks around the world. Not to be confused with the swinging inverter ship, the double swinging inverter ship is based off of the double inverter built by Chance Rides. Introduced in 1999, there are unfortunately no permanent double inverter models still operating today, but there is a single inverter still operating, located at the Adventure Dome in Las Vegas. The Rotor is a surprisingly old amusement ride, having first been designed and patented in 1948. It's essentially a large upright barrel that is rotated at high speed, causing riders to stick to the barrel's inner wall due to the resultant centripetal force. To add to the thrill, the ride's floor is retracted when the barrel reaches its top speed. Since its first appearance at 1949's Oktoberfest, the Rotor has thrilled and captivated people all over the world, including legendary film director Francois Truffaut. The Rotor's design in RCT3 seems to be based off of the rotors built by Chance Rides, who acquired the rights to build permanent rotors in 1972. Once an incredibly popular ride, there are very few rotors still operating today, having mostly been replaced by... The Gravitron was based off of a ride commonly seen at traveling fairs and festivals, the Wisdom Rides Gravitron. Also known as the Starship, this visually striking ride was first manufactured in the early 1980s and is a modified version of the Rotor. This is one of the few exceptions I'll make to my generic theme rule, as the Phoenix Twister, despite being found under the adventure theme, was based off of a pretty famous real-life flat ride, that being the Condor, built by the legendary flat ride manufacturer Huss. First introduced for the 1984 World's Fair in New Orleans, the Condor has proven to be one of Huss's most popular ride models, and just like an RCT3, it often has carriages themed to birds. The first of two Frisbee-style rides we'll see, the Revolution, with its 4-person carriages attached to 8 individual arms, was of course inspired by the Chance Rides Revolution, specifically their older 32-rider model. Despite being manufactured by Chance, the Revolution was actually designed by the Dutch manufacturer KMG, who makes a tiny portable version of the ride called the Freakout. Yet another variation on the rotor, the Roundup ride was based off of, well, Roundup rides, first invented by Frank Hrubitz in 1954. Hrubitz originally worked for the Irely Aircraft Company, an American manufacturer who first began building flight simulators before transitioning to amusement rides, and developed two very famous flat rides for them that we'll see a bit later. Hrubitz left Irely to form his own self-titled amusement firm in 1939. There, he developed a number of famous rides, including the Paratrooper, which unfortunately did not make its way into RCT3, and, of course, the Roundup. The absolutely insane-looking Sky Sling was based off of the real-life and no less insane Sky Sling, manufactured by the American company S&S, the company who built their success off of the launch Freefall. S&S opened two Sky Slings in 2001 at Cedar Point and Knott's Berry Farm, with ride vehicles featuring a nerve-wracking saddle-style seat and a minimalist restraint system that does not resemble the design seen in RCT3. Instead, the in-game design looks to be based off of the Sky Sling 2.0, introduced in 2002, with its more secure restraints and sane-looking seating arrangement. Six Flags purchased 3 of these rides, which were unfortunately all removed within 9 years of their opening after years of maintenance issues. The Sky Wheel, which is essentially 2 Ferris wheels attached to either ends of a large rotating boom, was inspired by the Chance Ride Sky Wheel, also referred to as a double Ferris wheel. Chance Rides and the Alan Herschel Company apparently began making these in the late 1930s. Today, they're pretty rare, with online sources saying that there are only 3 operating models in North America, appearing at various fairs. The Top Spinner is based off of the terrifying Topscan rides built by the Dutch amusement manufacturer Mondial, infamous for their Windseeker model, which came out after RCT3's expansions were finished. The first permanent Topscan looks to be the still operating Samurai at Lagoon. Mondial is still making these, having recently installed Soul Spin at Knott's Berry Farm in 2017. The Zipper is based off of one of the most iconic carnival thrill rides, the Chance Ride Zipper. First created in 1968 by Joseph Brown, these early models developed a nasty reputation after a series of well-publicized deaths in the 1970s. Newer models were created with improved safety features, allowing zippers to continue to terrify and nauseate guests today, typically at North American fairs and carnivals. The Aileron was based off of these spinning tower rides built by Chance Rides, what they call their Aviator model. The first 2 models were erected for the 1998 season at Wild Adventures and Elitch Gardens. From 1994 to 2003, Huss Ride saw a lot of success with their Frisbee ride model, notable for its 2 semicircles of inward-facing seats, a model which did not inspire any flat rides in RollerCoaster Tycoon 3. However, Huss's successor to the Frisbee, what they call their Giant Frisbee, did in the form of the Discus. The first Giant Frisbee was Delirium at Kings Island, which swings riders an insane 137 feet into the air at its highest point. The Disco was unsurprisingly based off of the Zamperla Disco, a more thrilling version of their floundering ferry first introduced 1 year before the release of Soaked in 2004. Zamperla produces a few different disco variations, but the RCT3 design resembles the classic disco model, which features a U-shaped track and a 24-person ride vehicle with outward-facing seats. The Double Skywheel is based off of the twin version of the Chance Ride Skywheel. I know these exist, but I couldn't find a whole lot of information about them online. It looks like you can still find them on some different fair circuits. The Giant Slide is based off of the fairly generic Giant Slides found at fairgrounds and amusement parks the world over. The UK manufacturer Bennett is probably the most prolific Giant Slide builder, producing over 100 of their Astroglide slides in the 1970s. And while these slides are usually relatively tame, the Giant Slide at Belle Isle in Detroit stands out for its insane ejector airtime, something that caused it to go viral in the summer of 2022. The spinning, twirling, and inverting gyrator was based off of the Huss Booster, a more thrilling version of their popular breakdance ride which didn't make it into the game. 3 Huss Boosters were built in the late 90s and early 2000s, 2 for the European Fair Circuit and 1 for Linnanmäki in Finland, which unfortunately closed in 2016. Added and soaked along with other Hershey's rides and products, the Kissing Tower was inspired by Hershey Park's very own Kissing Tower. Just like the RCT Classic observation towers, the ride was marketed and sold by Intamin, but not manufactured by them. That honor instead goes to Wagner Biro, an Austrian manufacturing firm who briefly dabbled in amusement rides in the 1970s and 80s. The Chaos with a K was inspired by the Chaos with a C, manufactured by Chance Rides. Between 1996 and 2007, Chance produced over 50 Chaos models for both permanent amusement parks, like Cedar Point, and the festival circuit, where it could be mounted to a single trailer for easy transport. The Octopus ride in real life is a popular flat ride that takes on many forms depending on its manufacturer. The Octopus in RCT3 has only 5 arms, which led me to believe it was based off of the popular monster rides built by Schwarzkopf, but I could not find an example of a Schwarzkopf monster with a central octopus and sea dragons for arms. After searching for an embarrassingly long time, I stumbled across this ride, an octopus built by the Italian manufacturer Soriani and Moser, today known as Moser's Rides. It operated at Six Flags Great Adventure for less than 2 seasons before it was moved to none other than Washington's own Wild Waves, where it nauseated guests such as my partner, who vividly recalls vomiting after a cycle on it until 2015. Native New Yorkers like myself may see the parachute drop and think of Coney Island's iconic parachute jump, first built for the 1939 World's Fair in Flushing Meadows, but the ride in RCT3 probably wasn't based off of the OG parachute jump, and instead based on the rides that were inspired by it. Intamin's Paratowers. The first was built for Knott's Berry Farm in 1974, and with the recent closure of Great Adventure's Parachute Tower, only one still operates today, the Skyflower at Tokyo Dome City. Aptly included as part of the Soaked expansion pack, the wave-themed Pounding Surf was based off of the real-life Waikiki Wave Superflip rides built by Vekoma. Yes, the same Vekoma responsible for the countless boomerangs and suspended looping coasters also dabbles in flat rides. Their take on the topspin, it first premiered in 1991 at Kentucky Kingdom. But if you're looking for the specific installation that inspired the surfing theme in RCT3, look no further than Dreamworld Australia's defunct Wipeout, which looks nearly identical to the in-game design with its massive wave and water effects. Sadly, only one of these models still operates today, and if you want to ride it, it may be a good idea to start brushing up on your Uzbek. Another water-themed ride for the Soaked expansion pack, the Riptide was based off of the Wipeout rides built by Chance Rides. These rides are an updated version of their Trayban ride, which they've been producing since the 1960s, with the Wipeouts featuring bi-directional seating and faster spin rates. The Sky Swing was inspired by the Sky Coaster rides produced by Sky Coaster Company LLC. Despite their name, these rides are closer to a bungee jump attraction than a roller coaster, and are typically featured at parks as an upcharge attraction due to their limited capacity. The first Sky Coaster was built in 1993 at Big Kahuna's Adventure Park in Florida, which features a squared-off arch not seen in the in-game design. Sky Coasters with rounded arches began to appear 2 years later. At first glance, the Spin Doctor looks to resemble the popular booster rides built by the Italian manufacturer Fabri, but the 2 carriages per arm seen in the in-game model do not match the single carriage arms found on most boosters. Thankfully, Fabri did manufacture a single real-life booster model with this odd split carriage design, what they called their Giant Booster. It opened in 2003 at Fantasy Island in the UK. The Barnstormer was based off of the Barnstormer rides manufactured by Intamin. Only 5 models were ever built, the first 2 at Six Flags parks in the mid-1980s. According to Coasterpedia, one Barnstormer is still in operation at 99 Village in Kuwait, having been relocated there from Lot World in 2009. The excellently named Claw of Doom was inspired by Sledgehammer at Canada's Wonderland, the world's first and only giant jump, or jump squared model, manufactured by Huss. While visually very impressive, the ride suffers from frequent mechanical problems and operates very sporadically, which could be why only one of these was ever built. The suitably named Insanity resembles 2 different but very similar ride models. The first is the Evolution, manufactured by the Dutch company Boosink, who are primarily known for their giant Ferris wheels. Boosink built 3 Evolutions, including one that ended up at Six Flags St. Louis, before they licensed their design to Fabri, resulting in their second ride model. I believe the RCT3 version was based off of Fabri's design, as their Evolution contains 10 passenger carriages, while Boosink's has 16. From what I could find online, there are 3 Fabri Evolution models on the American Fair circuit and 6 in Europe. So I have no idea what the Loop-de-Loop was based off of. It sort of resembles the infamous Flying Fury rides built by Technical Park, but the 3 planes, swing set-like design, and colorful contrails likely point to a different source of inspiration. What that is, I cannot tell you. So if you have any idea, let me know in the comments. Remember Frank Herbitz, the man who created the Roundup? If you do, you may recall that before he created his own company, he worked for the Irely Aircraft Company, founded in 1930 by a man named Lee Irely. Lee designed and patented a number of amusement rides that have since become classics, including the Lupo plane, first invented in 1933. The ride was a massive hit with carnivals due to its small size and high thrill factor, and can still be ridden today. The Meteorite, which if Six Flags developed RollerCoaster Tycoon 3 would have been placed with the roller coasters, is based off of the Fireball rides manufactured by Larson International, an American ride manufacturer known primarily for their flying scooters and for their loop models. The Fireball is the 3rd generation of the Larson loop, featuring an open-air train with over-the-shoulder restraints and a face-to-face seating design. You can find them today at both fairs and American amusement parks. Anyone who watched my video looking at the RCT3 coaster types knows that the robot arm was inspired by the RoboCoaster G1, first introduced in 2004 at 2 different Legoland parks. After the runaway success of the Lupo plane, Lee Irely went ahead and developed a new and improved version named, you guessed it, the Rolo plane. These were also quite popular, although are fairly rare rides to find at parks today. Fun fact, due to the look of the ride's twin enclosed cars, Rolloplanes are commonly referred to as salt and pepper shakers. The absolutely ludicrous looking Sky SWAT is a product of the twisted minds over at S&S, who first unveiled it at their Utah testing facility in 2002. The following year, a model opened at Six Flags Astroworld as SWAT, which was packed up and moved to Six Flags New England after Astroworld's closure in 2005. Catapult, as it was now called, operated sporadically until it was removed in 2013. Only one other Sky Swatter was built, Thorpe Park's Slammer, which has been standing but not operating since 2017, meaning, unless some other park picks up Thorpe's model, this ride is unfortunately ancient history. Even though it doesn't twist, tilt, or invert, the Tagada might be the most insane flat ride ever constructed. Just like in RCT3, real-life Tagadas consist of a spinning metal bowl placed on top of hydraulic arms, which the ride operator manually controls to bounce riders up and down while the bowl spins. Now you may be thinking, so what? Compared to some of the other rides we've seen, the Tagada's motion looks fairly tame. But the Tagada's insanity lies not in its motion, but in its complete and utter lack of restraints. There are no lap bars, no seatbelts, just some metal bars behind you to hold on to. The reason why the ride's bouncing mechanism is manually operated is so that the operators can give riders that have fallen out of their seat time to get back to safety before they're injured. Even so, broken bones are fairly common on these rides, both as a result of riders falling to the floor of the Tagada and of riders being completely ejected from the ride. Unsurprisingly, Tagadas are banned in the United States and Australia, but despite their dangerous track record, they remain really popular in the European fair circuit. Ride ops typically time the rides bouncing to music, lending Tagadas a party-like atmosphere. One day, I would love to get the chance to ride one of these. The Thunderbobs was inspired by the Matterhorn. No, the Matterhorn ride. No, the Matterhorn flat ride. There we go. Invented in the 60s by the Buffalo, New York-based Alan Herschel Company, today, Chance Rides and Mock Rides both manufacture rides of this style, which notably feature cars attached to axles that result in a pronounced swinging motion. And while they appear very similar, the Matterhorn should not be confused with the Music Express or Himalaya flat ride, whose cars run on a track and do not swing out. Remember Moser's Rides, the makers of the Sea Dragon Octopus we saw earlier? Well, they have a fairly robust flat ride collection, with their most famous probably being the recently retired Mock Tower at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. Another ride of theirs, and the one that inspired the Top Star, is the Top Star Tour. It looks like they first started making these in the early 2000s, with the model appearing at Oktoberfest in 2002. Today, Moser's Rides offers a newer, permanent version of the Top Star Tour named the Space Trainer, one of which was installed at Galaxyland in 2018. The Topple Tower was based off of the infamous Topple Tower rides built by Huss. The first 2 installations, El Volador at Belleward and Tangor at Walligator Park, very closely resemble the model in the game, with all 3 featuring a large beaked bird head at the top of the tower. This gravity-defying ride looked absolutely amazing to spectators, adding a great visual element to the part of the park it was located in. But the ride's mechanism of action was technically very complex, and the rides were incredibly unreliable. The most famous Topple Tower installation is probably Dollywood's Timber Tower, which closed after 6 seasons of sporadic operation and was so incredibly unreliable and troublesome that Dollywood sued Huss for negligence and breach of contract. The lawsuit was later settled out of court. All this to say, no new Topple Towers have opened since 2007, and only 3 still operate today. The Twirler was based off of one of the most popular flat rides in amusement history, the Tilt-A-Whirl. First introduced in 1927 by Sellner Manufacturing, it's been estimated that over 1,000 of these rides have been built since. In 2001, Larson International acquired Sellner Manufacturing, and with it, the production rights for the Tilt-A-Whirl, which they still manufacture today. Saving what may be the most obscure ride for last, the Whirling Dervish was based off of the traveling hard rock models built by Fabry. It looks like either 2 or 3 of these were built in the late 1990s, with one known to pop up at fairs in Southern California. I really couldn't find a whole lot of information about these rides. I'm not sure if they're still operating today, and if so, where they're operating. If there are any devout hard rock followers watching this, feel free to drop some info in the comments below. And there we have it, every single new flat ride introduced in RollerCoaster Tycoon 3. Which one is your favorite? Would you also throw up if you went on the octopus? Let me know in the comments. And if you made it to the end of the video, it'd be awesome if you could leave a like. It really helps support the channel. And be sure to subscribe so you won't miss more videos like this one. As always, thanks for watching.